Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2024 CRASH Symposium. My name is Daniel Movahed. I'm one of the staff members at the Undergraduate Research Hub who serves as one of the committee members for the CRASH Symposium. And I'll go ahead right now and pass it on to our main host, Dr. Artis, who's the Dean of the Undergraduate Research Advancement.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be very brief. I want you to know just a little bit about CRASH. This is something we started at the Undergraduate Research Hub about 10 years ago when we had a different name. We were Academic Enrichment Programs, and we were so dedicated to serving all of our students in all areas that we wanted to make sure that we gave a spotlight to research in the arts, social sciences, and humanities, because so many people think of us as a STEM university, and we're very proud of our STEM colleagues, but we are equally proud, equally excited by our CRASH students in the arts, social sciences, and humanities. We started CRASH as a one-day conference, but I think 5 years ago, we realized that we could have deeper conversations if we made it an occasional series. So this is the fall meeting of CRASH. We are planning to have another one in winter and another one in spring, and we'll make details of that available as soon as possible, and we certainly invite you to join us then as well. In fact, if some of you are interested in presenting at either the winter or the spring CRASH meeting, please let us know. You can send a note to the Research Hub in general at ugresearch.ucsd.edu or ugresearch@ucsd.edu. And you could also send it directly to Daniel, who seems to be shepherding us. So D Movahed, Movahed, at ucsd.edu. We'd love to have you spread the word about CRASH and make sure that we live up to our promise for all of our students to be given the spotlight. And so I'm very excited. This evening's presentation has a theme that just presented itself when we saw some of the interested submissions, and we have just a great discussion in store about education and training and the socioeconomic influences of achievement in those fields. So I'm just going to, as I said, stop then, and I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Julie Kim.
Hi, everyone. I am the office manager of the Undergraduate Research Hub. You'll see me from time to time in and out of the office, and it's a pleasure to be able to moderate today's panels. We'll have around 10 to 12 minutes for each presenter, and that will be followed with 3 minutes of questions. If the audience has any specific questions that they would like to include, please feel free to include it in our Zoom chat. We'll try to get to them if we can. And we are ready for the first presentation. Bem is going to be our first presenter. We'll be going in sequential order.
Hello, my name is Bem, and yeah, today I'm going to be presenting on the relationships between student stress and perception of transparency. And this is more of a research proposal because we just started doing the research this fall. So this just an outline of what I'm going to be talking about today. So I'll first introduce the concept of stress and tilt using literature findings that I did during the summer, and then lay out the hypothesis, the methods, the design, how we collect the data and how we analyze it. And if there's more time, I'll go into the obstacles and implications of the research. So during this summer, we did some literature review on how stress impacts minority students. And we define stress as a straining or demanding circumstance. And when you feel stress, you react to it, what you call a stress response. And we define a term called race-related stress, which are experiences in school that causes stress just due to your race or ethnicity. And during the summer, we found that race-related stress has an impact on the academic outcomes of historically underrepresented students. It could lead to a decrease in sense of belonging, which can lead to decrease in GPA. We also looked during the summer on financial stress. And if you can see from this table, that ethnic minorities experience more financial stress compared to white and Asian students, and that could affect have a negative relationship with your academic performance. If you take a look at this graph right here too as well, there's not really a direct relationship between ethnic minorities and GPA, but when they experience discrimination stress, that could decrease the self-efficacy, which can have a negative impact on their GPA. So essentially during the summer, we found that race-related stress negatively impacts historically underrepresented students. And we came up with this framework during the summer, which talks about TILT, which is basically a way to reduce academic stress. And what it does is it tries to make teaching and learning more explicit by clearly communicating the purpose, tasks, and criteria of assignments to students. It lets students know what is expected, why and how it's going to be evaluated. And this helps reduce ambiguity and confusion among students. And it can also help reduce, make students more familiar with the hidden curriculum too as well. So some of the things we're trying to address is the systemic barriers for students, because once you join an institution, you can't really change. Students have little opportunity to change institutional policies and structure, mostly because they have a lack of influence when it comes to teaching methods. So they rely on instructors to provide clarity on their assignments. And whenever there's a lack of transparency in how a class is graded or how it's taught, that could cause anxiety and unpredictability, and that could increase stress levels in students. So our research question, we're trying to see if transparency in teaching, if that can reduce academic stress among students, and who benefits the most from introducing transparent teaching practices. And we hypothesized that students who perceive higher transparency in the course will report reduced stress and greater predictability in the classroom. So we'll be using surveys and focus groups for this research. So basically what we do is we would send out a pre-intervention survey, maybe around week 3 or week 4. And then in the middle of the quarter, we would tilt the classroom. So basically, we'll restructure or modify the how that classroom is going to be taught to make things more explicit. Students know the purpose of each assignment, the criteria that's going to be used to grade those assignments. And then after we do that, we'd also take a survey like after the class has been tilted to see if students report that, oh, they feel less stressed and they feel like that class is more transparent compared to other classes that they have. So TILT is just basically like a 38 instrument survey which measures perception of transparency. We would also give students like a stress inventory, which is basically asking them, you know, how much do you feel that this class is transparent or not? Like what is your current stress levels and things like that? How predictable do you think you can predict you know, how your next exam is going to go, for example? And to analyze the data, we would use Python, MATLAB, and confirmatory factor analysis, and then maybe use correlational analysis also to test if there's an actual relationship between transparency, stress, and unpredictability. And the focus group is going to be semi-structured. We would hopefully do it either during the winter or spring. And I will be the moderator, hopefully, for this focus group. And it's going to be semi-structured, encourage discussion. Just ask questions to the students, and you know, have the room open, maybe ask them to talk about a time when maybe the purpose of an assignment was not clear enough and how they were able to address that situation. And then it'll be recorded and then transcribed, and then we'll use coding analysis to figure out the common trends for those for each response to see if there's a relationship there. And we're hoping to increase transparency in a classroom. I'm hoping, trying to what we expect is an increase in, so after we tilt the class, we're expecting students to report lower self-reported levels of stress. And then we're also hoping for students to also report an increase in student classroom engagement and to feel more like they belong in that classroom, and they can identify more with the teaching and learning outcomes. And then we're hoping that that could actually have a more beneficial effect for underrepresented students that participate in this research, and that could help reduce additional stressors that they feel. Long term, we're hoping that we can have like policy changes to how teaching is conducted in the classroom. Immediately, we will hope to see reduction in academic stress, and maybe longer term, as we keep implementing these, maybe we can see potential for higher GPAs and better academic performance. Some of the potential obstacles in this research, maybe faculty participation. We're hoping that the faculty might cooperate more to allow us to like tilt some of these. We've had some faculty that are willing to participate in these. And when it comes to the student side, maybe hoping that maybe offering extra credit to participate will maybe prompt the students to respond. And for the focus group, making them know that their responses are confidential, that could promote honest feedback. So yeah, today, just to summarize, I talked about how stress could negatively impact students, and it has a greater impact on historically underrepresented groups. And we are currently in the process of implementing transparent teaching in certain specific classrooms, and then giving out surveys during the course of the quarter to see if that students are reporting lower stress as the quarter goes by. And after analyzing our data, and we're hoping to see this a relationship there that could promote long-term educational improvements to the teaching experience. And thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben. I'm going to just clear out my timer over here. We're going to start 3 minutes of question. I will open the chat for any questions that folks may have about Ben's presentation, but we'll start off with, we've seen your presentation transform from the summer during the summer research conference to now, and it's really fascinating to see the different kinds of avenues that you've been exploring. And it's great to see that you're exploring education at an educational campus. One question I have is, what's some advice that you would give to students who's looking to do this kind of research in general, or something, some sort of research in this particular field?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yes. So you've had 2 different transformative phases when it comes to your research right now. What's some advice that you would give students who's interested in doing this particular research?
Yes, so well, I would advise, I guess maybe uh, maybe they should ask, like, how much did they how much, because this research is more about um it's for people who love education, and who love seeing students improve. So I guess the advice I would give would be, if you like to do the research, you should probably ask yourself, what are the ways you can see yourself having an impact on students who are struggling academically, and how can you help them? How can you help them reduce their stress levels? This is a pretty new field. It's called discipline-based education research. There's not a lot of published articles, research articles on this topic. So it's pretty new, and it's changing from time to time. So I guess the advice I would give to them is, for you to do this research, you really need to care about student success.
I think that's really fantastic. And it seems as though you initially started with race-based stressors, and seeing how this tilt system would benefit all students universally. Um, it is really admirable. You mentioned something called hidden curriculum in one of the barriers. Can you just debrief that term?
Yeah, so the hidden curriculum, these are unwritten like rules, lessons, values, perspectives that students do not know in the classroom. For example, students who come from different backgrounds, they might not know like when to speak or how to write, um, um, like how the classroom is conducted. And also there's certain lessons that certain groups of people are taught, certain things you're meant to know, the language that not necessarily some instructors teach classes with a presumption that students are aware of certain norms, or certain thinking, having an assumption that every student knows, like a baseline or certain unspoken
Yes.
classroom. So I think making that more explicit, and also acknowledging that not everybody has the same experience. And yeah, so hidden curriculum are just certain perspectives that students might have that or the majority of students might have that not every student is aware of that.
I think that's really good to note. There's so many subtle, nuanced mannerisms, educational things that we are coming to this campus with so many different backgrounds. So I would also appreciate something that has a little bit less of this hidden curriculum. But Ben, thank you so much for your presentation. It was really, really informative, and it was so nice to see how your research has transformed in the past few months.
Sure, thank
Excellent.
you.
Yeah, of course. Congratulations. Up next, we'll be moving on to Van's presentation. We'll have Dr. Chapman presenting.
All right, so everyone can see, yes, thank you. Yeah,
Yes, looks good. Thank you.
great. This is so much fun. I am so excited to have so many opportunities to listen to students exploring age-old problems in education with new methods and new lenses. We definitely need the work, need the help, and I am very excited to talk about my research. I'm Dr. Tonica Chapman. I'm in the Education Studies department. I'm a full professor. I'm also an Ethnic Studies faculty affiliate and the Advancing Faculty um, Diversity Coordinator for the AFD program. When Daniel asked me to do this, he said he suggested that I pick some research or talk about a latest topic. And I started going through a lot of my research and I was like, that's just not going to work because I couldn't pick a favorite. And I've been doing this for 20 years and so a little bit longer. And so I thought that I would talk about the spectrum of education research through a couple of my different projects. And when we talk about areas of education research, we really express the gamut of different types of education, everything from higher ed and student services and classrooms and professors and students and everything going from graduate level work to the different disciplines to undergraduates to special programs. K-12 education is really our largest pocket. A lot of times people think of education research as K-12. Pre-K and TK research exists. We look at issues with parents and families, community programs, after-school programs, adult education, exceptional education, and different types of schooling. So some of the umbrellas under which all of these different areas of research find themselves often are policy and talking about how different policies affect students, affect resources, affect different outcomes, how policies create barriers, how policies create access. We also look at student experiences. How are students experiencing school, right? At whatever level, in whatever discipline, and the different facets of that experience and how their experiences often intersect and commingle with their backgrounds, their identities, their place in the world, their place in the United States, all are part of our work on student experiences. We also look at student outcomes. Is something working? Is something not working? What is happening with student achievement or motivation or behavior or students' engagement? We study a range of student outcomes in education research. Leadership is also a large area of education research. Who are our leaders? What do we ask our leaders to do? How do our leaders lead? And in what different ways do leaders set expectations and goals and frameworks for teachers and schools and universities in ways that those of us who work underneath these umbrellas can fully participate in education. Instruction and pedagogy. This is my heart. This is my favorite. Well, that's not true. Actually, quite a few of these are my heart and my favorite. Instruction and pedagogy, how we teach, what do we teach, when we teach it, what we do when we mean instruction, and how it affects students and those in our classrooms. Curriculum is another large area of education studies. When we talk about curriculum, we're talking about everything from the syllabi to the hidden curriculum that Dan mentioned, to the choices in textbooks and the choices in readings, the things that you get and the things that you don't get, right? And this has been a huge piece, as you know, because of course, this is one of the core aspects of education that has been under attack now for several years. We look at institutional and structural barriers. How are different structures, like the time of day, like the bus schedule, like how after school programs are unavailable to kids who work after school, or tutoring programs are unavailable to kids who are bussed in and have to leave, right? How do we look at institutional and structural barriers in order to understand how we can remove these barriers to access and create a more inclusive system of education? And lastly, teachers. And this is by far not all of our umbrellas, but teachers, right? The greatest people in the world are teachers. Teachers are the backbone of our education systems. Teachers, outside of parents, make the most effect and have the most influence on children. They spend 8 hours and 6 hours a day with young children. Oftentimes, they spend more time a day in their elementary and middle school classrooms with children than their parents. So the way, and where is it? Click, what? There we go. So how do I go about this work? I am a critical race theorist, also highly under fire at this point in the realm of education. And in critical race theory, we believe particularly in the idea of racial realism. We believe that race and the construct of race has very real effects on children and families and students, and everyone in the capacity of education. Actually, in the capacity of the United States, where critical race theory was formed, we believe that race and racism has historical lingerings that have been institutionalized and placed into our structures and institutions in ways that reify and replicate themselves, even when we don't have a choice in the ways that those barriers continue to exist. A critical race theorist looks at interest convergence. Who benefits when we change policies and practices and when new laws are made or changed? We look at whiteness as property. How is whiteness constructed? How is whiteness conferred as a privilege? How is whiteness wielded? Right? Even again, when individual actors may not understand their own power, but that power is in place both individually and institutionally. We look at voice and counter story. So the idea for critical race theory is to elevate those voices that have been marginalized, to shine light on those voices that have been silenced. We do not give voice. We believe that everyone has voice, but we understand that some voices are allowed to be louder, right, and stronger, and there are reasons and rationales for that. And at the same time, when we talk about counter story, we're looking for the story that is not told. When we talk about why kids right now are opting out of school in higher numbers than they ever have after COVID, we want to know why. What is it about school that makes students lack the motivation to attend, right? Rather than what is it about the children themselves. So our focus is on institutions and structures and not having a deficit perspective of children. We also look at social change, intersectionality. Even though race is at the center and the core of our research, we look at how that intersects with gender, socioeconomic status, and other social factors and modifiers in our identities. And then we also have a critique of liberalism and color blindness. During COVID and in the years after, a reporter asked me, why do critical race theorists love Democrats so much? And I said, honey, we don't love anybody. We don't love Democrats and we don't love Republicans. Our challenge is to critique the systems that are in place and how those systems can be better. So different theoretical underpinnings, when we talk about this being a social science framework and highlighting social sciences. Social sciences have so many different wonderful theories that intersect and interact and that have come to be a part of critical race theory. We really don't espouse that we own any particular set of theories. What we've done is we've taken from the post perspectives, we've taken from the critical perspectives, we've taken from indigenous ways of knowing and understanding the world, and we've taken from various research methods, methodologies, and analytic frameworks to create this theory. So because I'm running out of time with a quickness. Also, in my work, I use what's called a social justice framework, which is a philosophy and approach and actions that embody treating people with fairness, respect, and generosity. I'm going to move on. So let me move to some of the examples from my research. My research has spanned qualitative mixed methods, quantitative, and also secondary sources when talking about issues of policy in US charter schools. I have had the privilege to do a lot of qualitative work. It is my preference with the qualitative in talking about things from issues of students in desegregated classrooms, from the creation of small high schools that are now known as charter schools, from looking at suburban schools versus urban schools, and how teachers' work reflects culturally relevant pedagogy. I look a lot at women, particularly women of color, mothers, and how they advocate for their children, and how students of color in particular navigate schooling and navigate issues of race and class and gender. In my mixed methods areas, I've looked at how African-American students explore college choice and what are the things that make African-American students choose one school over another. High achieving African-American students is important because oftentimes in education research focuses on low achieving students and deficit frameworks of African-American students. So we looked particularly at high achieving students who could get in and should have gotten in anywhere in the country. I also have been working on an early education project and talking about how to infuse anti-racist pedagogy into early education centers where children are coming in with just a dynamic mix of identities and languages and histories in the United States. And lastly, one of my quantitative pieces was a survey of education studies and our DEI courses. We currently have over 14 DEI courses. We are one of the largest providers of DEI, and I wanted to study that. I will end there because I know that I only have 3 minutes for questions, and I'll look forward to asking questions also, looking forward to answering questions also at the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Chapman. It seems fascinating that all 3 presenters today, although the topics are very different in many ways, it seems as though they're all weaved together. So it seems as though all those stressors that we had considered first in Them's presentation and Vaughn's presentation of gender seems to be exactly what you're tying together. Although we've defined some parts of education through the different groups that you said were affected, what are some purposes of education that you find the most critical?
To create an educated citizenship, to create citizens who have the knowledge and the perspectives, multiple perspectives, choice of perspectives, agency in order to create their own futures, in order to advocate for their families and their communities, for students to have jobs also, to create different avenues of employment, for children to be able to choose employment that will sustain them, that will make them and their work life a good and quality place to work, and for them to have the ability to opt out or change in different directions in their lives because they have education.
It seems like Dr. Artis has a question.
I hope this is one you can handle fairly quickly. And thank you so much for your presentation. You talk about individuals and systems, and I'm just wondering how you get around the system, like how you come to understand the scope of it, the power of it, and what impact that has on the individual, and then how you deconstruct it, if that's what you're doing. But what you can say about systems is I would find very interesting.
You know, in 1995, Derek Bell, the founder of CRT, wrote a piece called Who's Afraid of Critical Race Theory, which is hilarious because we know that people are very much afraid of it. And part of the fear, when you really look at it, is that when you know enough information, when you study systems, when you study institutions, when you study history, you can use those lessons to change it. And so part of the agency for students, but not just students, for critical race theorists, is how do we change a system, right? How do we change admissions policies? How do we change K-12 schooling and the curriculum that's in front of children, right? We've been moving this needle forward, which is highly problematic for a lot of people, but it's because we have learned those systems. We have learned barriers and pitfalls and figured out ways to move forward, either to eliminate them or work around them. Did I answer your question,
You
Dr. Ortiz?
absolutely did. You make me want to sign up for the cause. Thank you.
You're
So,
already part of the cause.
I know. Thank you.
And I do really appreciate that part. I find it extremely important that we do participate in many different institutions, not just in a university setting. We are constantly surrounded by different kinds of institutionalized forces. But to participate in it is one thing, and to be critical of it is one thing as well. So I really do appreciate those topics that you put forward, Dr. Chapman. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Julie, I have a question in the chat also. Can I answer it?
Of course, yes.
Says, thank you for your talk. What is something you have great hope for in the near term future in the realm of education? I I am always hopeful. I believe that as so let me back up a little bit. When people started attacking critical race theory, it was expected because as a historian, you see swings back and forth in education and in social movements. But what it did was it gave people we got more hits on the internet than ever, right? This is usually stuff that just stays in the academy with, nerdy scientists and theorists. And so when there was an attack on CRT, we became a household name. And I believe that because of that, and because people were so excited or so interested to find out what it was and why we are so scary, that it has created a motivation, particularly in communities of color, to maintain and sustain their culture and their history and our ways of life, and to fight for that. And so my hope is that as we move forward, that fight grows larger and bigger, because we're going to have to push against different new forms of racism and institutional racism in order to have a say in the way that we are schooled.
We do have one final question from Ben.
Hi, Dr. Chapman. I really enjoyed your presentation. And I was just curious, when it comes to like like the culture in education, how because you gave an overview of your research, you didn't really go too much in depth because of time issues. So I was just curious, like, do you also like focus on incorporating a more diverse culture in an educational environment? Because yeah, most of the times or sometimes it seems like there's always like a dominant culture, and then people who don't, or people who are new to that culture, they kind of have trouble initially. I don't know how long it usually lasts, but I would just wonder, when it comes to incorporating different perspectives in education, what your input is.
So yes, and you're right. I just flashed through those last parts. There are different aspects of that. There's my research, and then there's my work as a faculty member, which are very much blended together. My both influence the other, and they are extremely inextricably intertwined. But let me talk about just the research part. A lot of my work, when I talk about the idea of counter stories, the question becomes, why are students and families not engaged or not achieving to their highest potential in schools, right? And so the look is then, when you were talking about things about the hidden curriculum, what is it about that hidden curriculum that focuses on a particular, very narrow spectrum of culture and behavior and norms and expectations that other groups and children don't necessarily meet? And how does that transition from being in your home culture, right, in your neighborhoods and your families, how does that transition into school create dissonance for lots of students that creates not just a structural but individual barriers, right? So when we talk about things like students who are, called Black students who are high achievers, who are considered acting white, right? What is it when we say that? We're saying that they are complicit, or they have taken on the hidden curriculum, that they have taken on norms of high academic excellence, which is given privilege and aligned with whiteness, right? Why do we think that to be academically excellent, that means that you're white? And so when we think about the choices that young people in particular, because I'm a high school, a former high school teacher, when we think about the ways that school and the culture of schooling is in contrast and does not meet the needs of different groups, we have to talk about what are the ways that we change that. So a lot of my work also talks about culturally relevant pedagogy and working with teachers and schools and curriculum. One of the things that were up there, I was part of the doing a pilot for the ethnic studies program here in San Diego, so that the school board had the information that they needed to make that decision that ethnic studies classes should be throughout K-12 classrooms. So that in talking about the curriculum, but not just the curriculum, the ethos of schooling, how do we think about that in terms of the way that oftentimes it repels instead of recruits and embraces students and students from different backgrounds? And it doesn't have to necessarily just be racial. It's oftentimes socioeconomic, it's oftentimes religious, it's oftentimes gender, it's oftentimes all of the above.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Chapman. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Artis for our closing remarks.
Thank you to all of our presenters. It's really just wonderful to get the energy and the commitment and really the passion. And thanks to the people who stuck it out. I know it's late fall afternoon. We can go now and feel like there's work to be done, and we've got some people on board with us who've given us some new ways of thinking about that work. So I'm very grateful. And again, CRASH will reconvene winter quarter. We need your ideas, so please join us.